If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.
I'm Megan Gleason.
And I'm Dan Boyd.
And this is Rounding Up the Roundhouse.
We're joined today by two legislators in advance of the 60-day session, House Speaker Javier Martinez and House Republican Caucus Chairwoman Rebecca Dow. Thanks to both of you for being here today.
Thanks for the invite.
So as we all know, the session is right around the corner. Looking ahead, jumping right into it, maybe Speaker, start with you. What can you tell us, kind of three issues on your mind that are going to be big issues during this upcoming session?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you, Dan and Megan, for the invitation. Happy to be here on your, I think this is your very first Albuquerque Journal podcast. Very cool. Top three issues for us are going to be affordability, making life more affordable for New Mexicans, especially of what, in light of what potentially is coming the next 4 years. We want to make sure that we take care of working New Mexicans and ensure that their cost of living doesn't increase. Number two, public safety. As you both know, we've been hard at it for the last several years on public safety, whether it's investments, whether it's equipping our law enforcement agencies with the tools that they need, as well as our public defenders, district attorneys, and our court system. Over the last few months, we've been laser focused on behavioral health, treatment, recovery, as well as issues around competency. So expect to see legislation that deals with that. And parallel to that are behavioral health investments that need to be made. The behavioral health system was decimated 10 years ago under the leadership of the prior governor. And so we have been playing catch up the last few years. So there'll be some pretty significant investments this coming session with regard to behavioral health. And then lastly, we've got to get ahead of what's been happening with CYFD. This is a bipartisan issue. I know Representative Dow's worked on this as well in the past when she was in the House. That is work that will continue, and we're looking forward to working on fixing and reforming the Children, Youth, and Families Department. So those are the big top three issues that we'll be focused on. Although, as you know, with 112 members of the legislature, there's 112 really good ideas on any given day on any given issue. So we'll be dealing with all of those as the time comes.
Yeah, and some of those ideas we did hear from House Republican leadership. So Representative Dow, can you go into your big three? What are the big three issues coming into the session?
Yeah, I mean, like what the speaker is saying is music to my ears. You know, as you know, right here in Bernalillo County, Representative Ream has, really been hard at work trying to get some criminal justice reform, some tougher on crime, really where we protect the victims and not the criminals. And so we're really excited about hopefully some bipartisan support around the confidentiality clause, the catch and release, supporting our law enforcement officers. They make it really clear we're following their lead. They're telling us what they need, the resources they need, the technology they need to be able to recruit and retain the staff that they hire, particularly along the border where we see human trafficking, especially of children, vulnerable children, the drugs and the fentanyl. Over 2 New Mexicans die a day from fentanyl overdose. That's coming straight up the border. And we can do our part as a state to provide some security and provide our law enforcement at the county and city levels with what they're asking for, particularly technology, equipment, road maintenance and repairs, those sorts of things. As well as, I'm so excited to hear about CYFD. The urgency is growing, particularly around CARA. Our leader, Representative Armstrong, is working with the governor's office on a reform to CARA, and that's the bill that deals with children who have born exposed to substance. Over 90% of the abuse that occurs in the state happens with younger children, 5 and under. And if we can really strengthen families' ability to provide healthy parenting and give them the tools they need to succeed, we hope to see child and abuse reduced. So the speaker has been very supportive of building home visiting, infant mental health, parent-child psychotherapy, all these things we know that are important to help, and behavioral health, to reduce the abuse and neglect. So if we can find a way, all those beautiful programs remain voluntary. And we feel like in the Republican Party, when there's substantiated abuse and neglect, that those programs are designed with families that are most at risk in mind. And we want them in those programs before those children are returned to the homes where they're abused over and over. Of course, the economy. And we see energy, access to affordable, reliable energy as the number one cause of inflation. But New Mexico, with our resources across the state, not just oil and gas, but all of our minerals, provide us with the opportunity to make sure every New Mexico citizen has affordable, reliable energy so they can heat their homes in the winter and cool their homes in the summer and keep their gas tanks full so they can go about their daily lives, but also what our part to make America energy independent and to provide national security. No one's reducing their use. Citizens are not reducing their use. We're actually increasing our use. And if we want to move into AI and build further storage centers here in New Mexico, we need to figure out the best practices around energy. And we believe that includes mixed deliveries.
And I think, as both of you know, we've seen 60-day sessions where all the action happens in the final few weeks of the session. Sounds like, Mr. Speaker, that things might be moving a little quicker in this 60-day session. Should we be making weekend plans for the first 30 days of the session?
Wow. Good question. Yeah. Look, with regard to the work around competency and behavioral health, we do plan on moving quickly. We do plan on moving those bills, within the first month or so of session. That's how important and how critically important these proposals are for communities far and wide. Now, it's a 60-day session, so everything goes, anything goes. Anyone can introduce most anything they want, and there's no bill limit to, that legislators have to abide by. So, I find that 60-day sessions always get really crunched up at the end simply because of that bottleneck. But with regard to competency, with regard to behavioral health, those will be moving fairly quickly in the first few weeks.
And I want to jump in here, Representative Dow, because House Republican leadership also talked about working across the aisle and kind of prioritizing crime across the aisle for the first time. Can you speak about that?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean with regards to coming across the aisle. We've been bringing forth, we're really the law enforcement officers,
Whether it's the Sheriff's Association, cities and counties, these municipalities, DAs, they've been bringing bills. And we've been introducing those. So the rules are designed to protect the minority, and I know the speaker knows this more than anyone. And so we're really excited to see that there's bipartisan support. And so many of those bills kind of look like recycled. We don't care who carries the bills. We want New Mexicans to be safe to go. I just came from the bank, and there were 7 cars in the parking lot. Those are rusty. I had to stay inside. All of us had to stay inside. We could not go outside. I was in Albuquerque, outside of our meetings that we've had today, for less than an hour before I saw a crime and I saw someone being arrested. I would guess that person will probably be released before the report's filed. And I think we're all in agreement that we need to make sure that moms can go to the bank and make a deposit without at risk of being harmed. There was guns involved, and that shouldn't be happening. So I think there's agreement on that, and I'm looking forward to it. We've been at the table, we'll remain at the table, and if those bills look like some of our past bills that are being reintroduced, under different sponsors, we're excited to sponsor them. We're excited to vote for them.
And Speaker, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, on what's changed since the special session where not much really got passed in terms of the governor's crime agenda.
Well, Megan, first of all, I think you've got to remember we've been at this public safety effort for several years. This is not new. Representative Dow is right. Republicans and Democrats have been at this for many, many years. And in some cases, we have seen a decrease in crime. We know that in Albuquerque, there's been a decrease in violent crime, and it's not by accident. It's because our law enforcement is doing their job. The DAs, the PDs are doing their jobs. It's because the legislature has done its job over the last few years. Having said that, what's changed between the special session and now? Well, very simply put, these very complicated let's parse it out, right? Competency. What does that mean? It means that if you're incompetent to stand trial, that we somehow will commit you to a process involuntarily to restore you to stand trial. That's very complicated. Not only is it a complicated legal web that somebody has to go through, but on the other side of that equation, do we have the providers How many of your listeners have had a need to find a behavioral health provider, a drug treatment center for your loved one who wants it, and it's impossible to find? Again, in 2013, 2014, Governor Susana Martinez completely decimated the behavioral health system, which was already not very good to begin with. It was completely decimated, and we've been playing catch up. So what's changed? Well, I'll tell you what's changed. We've given the last 8 months, probably since about March or April of last year, the time to really understand these complex issues and figure out what the different solutions that need to be implemented are. And that's where we're at. Quite frankly, what was presented during the special session wouldn't have solved any of these problems. And it probably would have only made them worse because of the lack of services and supports for people who need these services. Lastly, I think we all recognize the impact of fentanyl in our communities is a horrible, horrible thing. Keep in mind, 89% of the fentanyl that is trafficked into this country is trafficked by U.S. citizens through legal ports of entry. Let me repeat that. Almost 90% of all the fentanyl trafficked in this country comes through legal ports of entry, trafficked by U.S. citizens. So to conflate fentanyl trafficking with immigration is a complete fallacy.
Let me jump in, and you both talked about some of the real challenges facing the state. I think for a lot of New Mexicans, looking at the amount of revenue the state has and saying, why haven't we been able to turn around some of these issues, given the record amounts of revenue that are flowing into the state, largely due to oil and gas. I mean, is there an issue where it's almost so much money that it's been hard to kind of put it to use and have the infrastructure to make changes in education, CYFD, things like that, and just kind of the manpower that's been lacking maybe a little bit, or kind of the retention and recruitment of new employees?
Well, I think you have to remember, Dan, for 8 years, we starved state government. And it wasn't simply a matter of money. State government was virtually dysfunctional, non-functional. I spent my first 4 years in office where Governor Martinez's no relation. It was her second term. And that administration completely starved government, from early childhood supports to public safety to behavioral health. And so for the last 6 years, and if you look at the timeline between 2019 and today, we have not only increased access to healthcare, Medicaid reimbursement rates, provider reimbursement rates significantly. We've also enacted a series of tax reforms to make life more affordable for working New Mexicans. We have one of the most generous working families tax credits in the entire country. We are one of the few states with a state level child tax credit. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been returned to the pockets of those hardworking New Mexicans every single year since 2019. So a lot of good stuff has been happening. Now, is that translating into lower crime? Well, if you're in Albuquerque, like I said, violent crime has come down. However, we're not really seeing it as residents of this great city, right? Where I live, when I go to work, when I go to the coffee shop, I see people in crisis on the streets almost every single day. So we've got to figure out how to support those folks, how to support their families, how to ensure that they're okay, how to ensure that they have a roof over their heads. But that takes a whole lot more work, because we are undoing essentially 8 years of lost opportunity between 2011 and 2019.
I really didn't want the conversation to go to pointing fingers to a Republican administration that served for 8 years. New Mexico's been at the top of the bad list and the bottom of the good list for a very long time. And I think that for me, going into a 60-day session in the minority, where every single chair is of the majority party, I'm hoping that the bills will be considered. You're asking, will there be bipartisan efforts? That's completely up to the majority, who is able to suspend debate, can cut off public comment, does not have to introduce bills in order that they're filed. So whether this is a bipartisan effort is up to the majority, and the minority stands by, again, with evidence-based proposals, real solutions. They're not talking points. Like, I know that our crime bills are coming from law enforcement officers. They're coming from first responders. They're coming from municipalities telling us exactly what they need so that their communities have the adequate funding and resources, technology they need in order to address crime. Competency, where we are right now, if someone is not capable of being held in court, they're released. At least in my district, Chief Story will tell us that people will commit violent crimes over and over and over again, and they're released. Whether there is behavioral health capacity or not, Republicans believe that a basic role of government is to provide public safety and protect law-abiding citizens from harm. That's a good use of taxpayer funds. And if we can't wait until we have capacity for every person's behavioral health. But we do need reforms. One of the regulatory reforms that we're looking for is to ease the ability to become a behavioral health provider. Getting your social work license and becoming an independent practitioner is very difficult in New Mexico. We don't have enough reciprocity for our behavioral health providers. And it's up to the MCOs to decide whether they add a provider to the network. So even when people are willing and able to provide services, they may not be accepted by an MCO.
And I want to switch gears a little bit too to something else that we think is going to be a big topic this session, which is environmental issues. We know the governor is going to introduce her strategic water supply again to treat and reuse brackish water and oil and gas wastewater. We know the state land office is going to push for higher royalty rates. And in fact, the commissioner, Stephanie Garcia Richard, earlier this year said she was going to stop leasing the best tracts of oil and gas land until the legislature approved an increase in royalty rates. So what can New Mexicans expect from the legislature on an environmental front?
Well, I wouldn't frame it as an environmental front. I mean, this is an existential crisis. The climate crisis is real. Look at what's happening in California. Look at what happened in North Carolina and other southern states late last year. Climate change is real. Now, at the same time, we understand the incredibly important role that the oil and gas industry plays in New Mexico. From the workforce that it helps develop to the historic revenues that we've experienced over the last few years. Both can be true, and we can move toward a cleaner, more sustainable future while also continuing to appreciate and effectively utilize these natural resources. The Legislative Finance Committee put out a report in September, I believe by the year 2037, 2038, most of our general fund revenues will actually come from the interest earned from all the permanent funds we've created over the last few years. It actually will not come from oil and gas. It will come from those interest-bearing trust funds. That is good news for New Mexicans because not only can we continue the transition toward cleaner energy, more affordable energy, while at the same time safeguarding our revenue sources. And look, lastly, I have visited oil and gas country more than once, more times than I can remember. These are vibrant communities. The workforce is amazing, incredible. These are blue collar workers who are able to put their kids through college and buy their first home and buy their kid their car and whatnot from these jobs. So these jobs are extremely important, and it's something that I take pride in being a part of. And also, we can do this in ways that protect the environment. We can do this in cleaner, most efficient ways. On the question of royalty rates, that is something that oil and gas companies can afford. That's why we passed it out of the House last year, and many of them told me that. Like, it's not something that's going to break the bank. It's the right thing to do. It's the people's resource. It's the people's money. Let's get them the most bang for their buck, for sure. So, I think we'll see more of those come through. Again, 60-day session, anything goes. Everyone can introduce whatever they want. And so we'll look forward to vetting those bills and getting them through committee. And if they're good bills, they'll pass. And if they're not, they won't.
Anything to add to that, Representative Dow?
Well, I guess I'll start with your original question is what will we see with the environment? And the speaker brought up California. And California is on fire. I think there is bipartisan agreement with among House Republicans and Democrats, and Senate as well, that we've got to do more to prevent catastrophic fire. There's been investments in soil health, vegetation management, rebuilding our acequias. From the Canyon Hermit Peak fire, that was 3 years ago now. Not one single one of those 72 acequias have been rebuilt. And the regulatory process to rebuild those, they're predicting just from the engineering side of it, not even archaeological and environmental, that it could be a decade before those acequias are rebuilt. That is lost, something that is very, very important for our agriculture industry, and something that is very New Mexico true. And so if we can prevent catastrophic fires by increasing our amount of archaeological surveys that we can get done, if we can have all hands on deck for thinning where it makes sense, improve our soil health, get rid of the bottlenecks on the Rio Grande, I hope that's something we can agree on. But there are reasons why California's on fire. But on the energy front, we are adopting a lot of California's energy prices. And in the states where they do have the clean fuel standards, which we took right from California, I think it even says that in the bill, they're seeing gas prices 40, 50 cents more per gallon. And they're not reducing their use. They are buying their energy. They're still dependent on coal. They're just buying it from out of state. And so we are so blessed in New Mexico to have such a diverse amount of resources. We can do all of the above. I see, now Bill Gates is using the small nuclear reactors to fuel different parts of their industry. We can do that too. There's nothing that New Mexico cannot do around energy if we put our hands together. And I wish it were true that good bills got heard and bad bills did not get heard. I wish that were true. I think that'd be awesome. And I would just, challenge the chairs of the committees to let all the bills be heard. And so one of those that I think is a great one that should be heard is just giving more parents more say in their children's education. I mean, changing the subject here, but I don't think that a school choice bill has been heard in the House under this current chair, the education chair now.
Kind of running short here on time. Enjoyed the conversation with both of our guests. Before we let you go, want to ask you both, what's your go-to food in the Roundhouse when it comes to the final few weeks of a 60-day session?
Oh, I'm chai tea. I am a caffeineaholic. If I could just stick it up on an IV, I would. I don't know who I'm going to sit by on the House floor because I'm returning now, and I used to share a drawer with Representative Fajardo, and we fill it with nuts and jerky and, all the necessities.
Okay, this is top secret, but I'll let you guys in on the secret. You have to go to the Capitol kitchen.
Oh,
and
yeah.
ask for a bacon wrap, right? Tortilla with bacon, some cheese, some green chile. That'll pick you up, whether it's 7 in the morning and you're on your way to committee, or whether it's 3 in the morning and you're on the floor of the House debating a bill. Tell them I sent you, you'll get a discount.
Capitol Cafe is awesome. Whoever is in there does a great job. And my go-to from the cafe is they have a tuna salad. I just ask for a wedge of avocado in it.
I think we might be mentioning the cafeteria on every single episode of this podcast.
Please do. I get kickbacks from the cafeteria every time I send customers. So eat away. I'm just kidding. I don't.
Well, thank you so much for both being here.
Thank you. I think it's cool that you guys are doing this.
Yeah, good work. Thank you guys. And we'll see you guys soon.
Do you want to do an outro?
Just want to make sure he stays.
Okay. Everybody just stay on for a second. Do you want me to do an outro?
Go ahead and do it now.
Okay. This has been Rounding Up the Roundhouse. I'm Megan Gleason.
Dan Boyd.
Keep an eye out for updates throughout the week on what's going on at the Roundhouse. We'll be on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. So thanks for listening.